Hello friends and welcome back. This is episode 40 of our Terraria 1.2 Let's Play, and today I want to apologize for how salty I was getting on the end of that freaking pirate fight. It was out of control. I was very much hoping that was going to end soon, and thankfully, maybe in about 5 or so minutes after I stopped recording, it did actually finally end. The torrent of deaths. I collected somewhere around 30 gravestones, which I think is around what I was predicting would be the case. And it's taken a pretty great death toll on my NPCs. As you can see here, there are quite a few less than my normal amount living here in the building, but they'll hopefully be back soon enough. So that whole encounter has left me feeling a little bit blasé about the possibilities of going against some of the more difficult post-hard mode bosses. So I thought maybe we should change things up. I think this is a good opportunity to go ahead and do something that I've wanted to do for a long time that I've neglected to do, which is to go ahead and enter a Crimson World and get some of the stuff from that biome, which is a thing that I have really not hardly seen at all. So before we do that, though, I want to do one other quick thing, which is I have put a bunch of money in my stash here, and we're going to go up to our vendor, who now, I guess, lives at the top. I thought I had put him lower than that, but I guess I could always just look here, right? Oh, no, evidently I put him there, unless it moved it on me. Although, actually, it did move it on me, didn't it? Because I had put the nurse, like, right down at the bottom for quick access so I could heal up before I leave. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, it's not really that important. The point is, I wanted to go ahead and say thank you to the commenter who told me I should go ahead and get a safe. Also, there's gold dust here. I'm not sure I noticed that in a disco ball. So we now have a safe, and it is going to allow us to effectively get another, like, third or 33% larger inventory from what I can tell, because I think this is about the same size as a piggy bank. So then when I open the safe by putting it on the ground, right, I have to put it in my hotbar again. I know. Right, so there we go. There's another full set of inventory slots. So what we're going to do then is we're going to put our piggy bank in our safe. Then we're going to collect our safe and carry it, and then we've got a Matryoshka-style opening up inventory that's going to hopefully help us store a lot more stuff as we get further and further in. So the hope was that as I go and I collect all the junk that we're going to need to collect as we work our way toward hell in the Crimson World, maybe I won't have to make so many stops. And I guess theoretically I could put like another safe here, and we could do the same thing we're doing with the piggy bank, right? So I have like quick access. I don't have to keep opening up one and then the other. I wonder if can I store stuff in the piggy bank and then have it also be inside the... Yeah, I think I can actually, can't I? That's interesting. There's some sort of Mobius loop strip thing going on there. I don't know, but anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and reappear in the Crimson World, and then we will start our journey there. And the goal is, again, we'll reach Hell, we'll kill the Wall of Flesh again, which is why I've got the guide Voodoo Doll in my inventory, and then hopefully... Well, I guess I'm going to have to build a bridge, aren't I? So there's probably going to be a couple of episodes then before we're actually to our the end of our task. And the goal in that was to perhaps get some of the abilities and spells that I might need from the Crimson World. And I figure on my way down, I can go ahead and use my legendary Own Hammer to destroy some of the demon altars I might run into along the way. And then perhaps we could even get some titanium or something. I don't know. It seemed like a decent plan in my head. So I will catch you after the break, and we will be in Crimson Land. See you soon. Okay, here we are, a brave new world, as you can see. I did actually, just to double check before we got started here, I ran along in this map just a little bit. It's a medium map, in case you're wondering as well, and I made sure that this was a Crimson build. This particular one, actually, it took me, I think it was 4 tries before I actually was able to get one that spawned with Crimson in it. Apparently that's either rare or I just have particularly bad luck. Not sure which, but I guess our goal is going to be to immediately start digging, right? I mean, there's not really a whole lot else to worry about. I could build a little house or something, just have a little base of operations, but it's not all that imperative, because really we're going to be spending most of our time underground anyway, right? And I guess we've now got some sunflowers for the collection. I think this also is going to be a biome, or a set of biomes, or a world that has some of the other particular resources that I haven't gotten. I noticed I did, in fact, get iron here, which I think is a thing that wasn't available in the other one, right? So we're going to try and collect all of that stuff as well, complete our collection as much as possible. And I'm just going to flatten out the dirt here before we start digging into things. Having this freaking sweet pickaxe, though, means I don't have to worry too much about how long it's going to take to dig down. It's going to be pretty fast. And I'm going to try to hopefully find a cave system so that way we don't spend much time doing anything but making progress. And we've got some oddly shaped edges here, which we'll just straighten out. And we're just going to make the most very basic possible fortifications here. It really doesn't have to be much of anything. It just has to be something that I can pass the night in. You know, 4 walls or 2 walls and a roof, whatever you want to say. And I think that'll probably be good enough. And just get rid of this little bit of dirt in the background here. Oh, I've of course made another half tile. Why couldn't they have just done it like Starbound? It's so much simpler. You just use your right click, and then everything just sorts itself out for background stuff. It just seems like, well, you've got a foreground and a background, you've got 2 mouse buttons. It only kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Whatever. Not really that big of a deal, just something that crossed my mind. So we'll go ahead and build a quick little cabin here. There we go. And a little wall around, and another wall coming down. And we'll do a floor. It's going to be pretty tight in here. I'm not worried about it, though. And then we'll just open up the walls here, and we'll put some doors. I think this is about all it's going to be, guys. Hope you weren't getting your expectations up too high. I guess we could put, like, a stone background, or that might actually bring monsters, right? So I guess we should use wood for that as well. We need wood paneling, though. To make wood paneling, I need to make a workbench. Okay, it's workbench. Put that into place. Now let's make some doors. I think this process is not below us or anything, but it's certainly not the most labor-intensive or confusing at this point. I think we've got the idea. We've certainly built a few structures by now. And we'll do some wood wall. Won't even take that many, probably under 100, right? And we'll do some of this. We'll put up some torches, and then we will begin the slow descent, well, hopefully rather quick descent, in fact, down towards hell again. You know, we've been to hell before. I understand the process. It is somewhat time-consuming and elaborate on occasion. But with a little luck, maybe we'll make a straight shot down. I don't know if medium means that it's going to be any smaller in terms of verticality. I think it's just to do with width, right? I'm sure you guys can correct me on that. Anything else we need to do in this actual building? I guess we'll end up putting a chest here or something, right? I could actually probably do that right now, just to offload anything that we might need to get rid of. I don't even have the ability to make chests, do I? Oh, I have a campfire. I guess we'll make a campfire, and we'll put that down outside as well. That way we can get some healing done when we need to, and a couple more torches. And I think we're good. Alright, so I guess with that, let's dig in. We'll make our elevator right here. No need to make it labor-intensive to reach. And then we'll just dig, right? And we want to make it 4 tiles across, as we may have learned from prior endeavors, that we want to keep the corruption from spreading across the gap or whatever that is. It's going to be just fine like this, although, you know, stuff's going to eventually start falling in on us and all that. We're going to have quite a while here to get acclimated, start, you know, hanging out, talking, swapping stories, whatever. I'm sure I can come up with a few things to tell you about, and one of those, I already have an idea. In fact, I kind of wanted to go over some of the basics about this MCN issue that has been cropping up all across YouTube lately. It's a thing that I think some of my friends have already made videos on. I've been hesitant to make a video on it just because it's been a thing that's still in flux right now, and I don't like commenting on things that I'm not 100% sure I understand entirely, or at least how they're going to affect me entirely. Not infect me, although that would be a different story. But there is definitely a bit of an issue looming overhead on a lot of YouTubers' minds, and this is definitely going to be a little bit of a you know, technical and rather industry-intensive type of thing. So if you're not of the proclivity of caring about that, well, I guess you might want to skip ahead or something, because it's going to be a lot of just straight-up digging, so you're not going to be missing much. But I think this might also be rather interesting or informative for those of you who just have a vested interest in what YouTubers are doing. Ubers. I've made a new one, Ubersofts. Oh, we've got one of these, I guess this is the Crimson equivalent of the demon altar, but it looks kind of like a pile of organs or something. That's kind of interesting. So do we just go over and smash that? And yeah, we will be, I guess, sporadically interrupting our chat here with going ahead to investigate certain items. And we found some iron ore as well, which I'm sure we'll find plenty of on the way down. So anyway, back to the task at hand, or the talk at hand. There's this thing that, basically a negotiation that had to happen between YouTube and MCNs, which are also known as multi-channel networks. People like Polaris, or who used to be known as TGS, or, you know, all the people under the subclassification of Maker Studios, or Machinima, which is, in fact, the group that I'm with, the network that I'm with. And basically what has to happen here... Oh, I cannot apparently smash those with this. It just hurts the crap out of me. Alright, so never mind. We'll keep going then. Now I know. So there was a negotiation that's been ongoing now for quite a while between YouTube and the MCNs, and again, I don't know specifically how this is going to affect me, but I am at least going to comment on how I know it's coming to affect people that are on Polaris. And essentially, there is going to be a new classification system going on, where essentially there will be two groups known as either affiliates or managed channels, and the difference being that affiliates are essentially going to be the types of channels that you might have run into before there were even partnership deals, or before people were partnered. It's just essentially like a basic... oh, that kind of surprised me. I wasn't expecting that to happen. It's basically like as if you were not with anyone. You're going to have the main thing, which is kind of a complex and strange issue, and I know there's a good degree of nuance involved with even describing this situation, so try to bear with me if you can, but I'll spell it out as simply as I can possibly handle. There's this thing called the Content ID system, which is YouTube's way of trying to match people with other people's content to make sure that people are not making copyright infringing videos, uploading other people's content and taking credit for those things and getting paid for those things. So there's the process known as monetization, which is when a YouTuber basically puts up a video and claims it as their own. Something is then put up against that Content ID system to be matched in the case of, to see if someone else has put up that content as well. And if it turns out that there is a match and someone has put up that content, then a few options are given. You can have that content basically be handled by the other person, and the monetization rights will be passed over to the person whose video it originally was, or whose content it originally was. And there can be a match for either video or audio content, so it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other, or it could be both. So what happens then in that case is the original content creator would then be able to get money for the thing that you put up if it turned out that that thing was not yours. So that seems like it's all reasonable, right? But the thing that is a problem, though, is that the system that they use for Content ID is pretty screwy, and it doesn't always make correct matches. I've had situations come up where it is incorrectly matched content that I had all the rights to and said that I didn't, and then asked for me to claim, or to prove that I had the rights to that content. I did, and then it didn't accept the rights for that content, in which case I had to either take the video down or not be allowed to monetize it, which, in the case that what actually happened to me, it was my own little music video that I had put up, the Trust the Fungus one for Feet Don't Fail Me Now. It's a song that I wrote and recorded, and I basically had shot some video footage on my iPhone with a kaleidoscope plug-in filter. So nothing about that was in any way, shape, or form not something I had rights to. I had created every single little bit of that content, and YouTube, for whatever reason, had decided that I didn't have rights to that because I guess some freaking clip, like some little couple of moments in that huge, a pile of data, admittedly so, had somewhere matched with something strangely enough, and I don't even understand why it had even happened. But YouTube had decided it had, and didn't allow me the monetization rights for that. So, if that were the situation that was coming up in this new situation, what would that mean, essentially, is that people who legally have created things, videos, in this case, would not have the right to claim monetization of their own videos if that actually had come up as being wrong. It's not to say that that would happen all the time, and granted, I'm sure Google have taken plenty of steps to try and correct this issue and make things a little bit more legitimate. But in the case that we're essentially putting all of our earnings up against this, whatever you want to call it, I guess this situation, this scenario that we're kind of putting our trust in that Google is going to make this thing work properly, and it isn't a scheme that always has. And it's been proven not to in a lot of cases in the past, and it's kind of scary to know that if this is the position we're in, it being put as an affiliate could mean that you don't get to skip that process anymore. And that's essentially what the crux of this whole issue is. Back in the day, and this was never stipulated in any contract that I know of, but essentially becoming a YouTube partner with a network meant that you didn't have to use the Content ID system, and it's a thing that nobody really talked about because it was never really brought into question. It was just like, oh, well, this is one of the perks, right? You get, the MCN takes responsibility for the Content ID system, you don't have to deal with it, and you don't have to wait or have any issues with that. And that is basically the biggest problem right now, is that people would have to wait for that authorization to be approved. And I don't necessarily even think that's the end of the world. It's certainly not quite the sky is falling Armageddon scenario that I think a lot of people have posited it to be. Now what could happen is that people might have to wait 2 or more days, or perhaps just 2 days. I'm not actually sure 100% what it's going to end up being. But wait some amount of time on occasion to be able to post the videos and have their monetization go through. The situation where it does come up to be a big problem is in the case that, and this is often the case actually, where a YouTuber or someone who makes gaming content specifically will get a review code for a game which has an embargo that is up on a certain day. Embargo is basically like your clearance to post video content of this game, whatever it may be. And that clearance would not go up until a certain date, and at that point, everyone puts up their content all at the same time. Now, if you only got the game, and this is exactly what happened with Starbound, if you got the game in a small amount of time between you receiving the code and then that embargo being lifted, if it was less than 48 hours, and then that time amount turned out to be the amount of time you would need for monetization approval, there is a chance that you would either have to now make the decision of, do I post the video and not be able to claim it under monetization and not get paid for my work? Or do I go ahead and post it anyway, get all my views, basically, the moment the video goes up, which is primarily what happens. Usually the first day you get about 60% of the views or more. Well, depending on the tail of the video, there's a little bit of, difference in what could happen there. But a lot of the time, most of your views happen the very first day you post a video. So you'll be risking either getting the exposure and the possible SEO discovery, search engine optimization, of putting that thing up right away, or you wait, let everybody else get their videos up, get their exclusivity out of the way, get, the first day one videos posted, and then you come in later and then risk getting less views because already that has been saturated with other people's videos. So it's a bit of a hit-or-miss situation, and that is the one situation where this problem could be a huge problem for people. But then there's the status of managed channels, which are the ones that essentially would be exactly in the same position as they are right now. And for the most part, from what I've heard, mostly all the YouTubers that are out there, like 99% of them, are not going to be of this status. Even someone with such stature as, Angry Joe, who's got, I think, well over 1 million YouTube subscribers. He's pretty well established in what he's doing. He's well known. And yet, for whatever reason, his network seems to have put him as an affiliate channel. So he will be in that same pool as everyone else, essentially. So, you've got your people like maybe Total Biscuit, PewDiePie, and so on and so forth, probably Dodger, Jesse Cox, the usual people that are definitely like the top-tier YouTubers, the people who are most popular, Yogscast and all of them, will probably have no trouble with this. It's going to be just like, every other day for them. But myself included, I believe I am going to most likely be grouped in with the affiliate channels, and it's a little frustrating considering that, I got partnership in the first place, which was supposed to be sort of a thing that was a little bit on the special side. You had to reach some level of notoriety before they would look at you, hopefully, but that was before channels, or networks rather, started kind of just partnering all kinds of people willy-nilly and sort of stopped worrying so much about if you met any kind of quality requirements. And what that led to was tons and tons of channels posting copyrighted material and then getting pulled for it. So now what's going on is essentially YouTube is requiring these networks to take their, I don't know exactly what the right way is to say it. They wanted to have them be liable for it, essentially, that if a channel posts some kind of content that's against their terms of service or infringes upon a copyright, that the network would then have to take responsibility for it if it's a managed channel. If it's an affiliate channel, that's not the case, and the channel itself would take responsibility for that infringing content. So since that is the case, it would be in the network's best interest not to take responsibility for hardly any channels, right? Because what do they have to gain from that? Basically nothing. So we've run into a chest down here as well. Let's see what's in here. Oh, a menacing blizzard in a bottle. I'll go ahead and grab that. And that's about all I'm going to grab out of here. Featherfall potion, not really good enough. And I'll grab the glow sticks as well. Yeah, it's just it's a weird situation. It's definitely not ideal. And I'm still waiting to see how this is going to affect Machinima as a network. It might turn out to be that maybe this is not going to affect me the same way that it affects some of my friends, but I still am very upset to hear that this is now the issue they're going to have to deal with, and I don't like that at all. But if you've heard me complaining a little bit, this has kind of been what it's been about The issue has been a little bit cloudy and confusing, and I don't really even know what to make of it just yet, which is why I'm really reserving judgment. I don't want to necessarily make, you know, a damning video to my network just yet or anything like that, or, you know, even necessarily expose particularly large amounts of frustration, because right now I think it's in everyone's best interest to just wait and see exactly what happens. This hasn't actually taken effect yet, but I have heard possibly the 1st of January it might be a thing. And networks, oddly enough, are not really coming clean with all of the details from what I've been able to tell. There have been a number of them that have made statements on it, but most of them just been like, oh, it's all good, nothing's going to change. The thing that's going to change is, well, you might have to wait 2 days before you can post your videos, and that means for a lot of people who work really hard at making their videos and also have a full-time job at the same time, they're going to need to have a sufficient backlog to be able to have like 72 hours worth of videos ahead of time, which isn't always necessarily easy to do. I mean, it takes quite a bit of work to make even day-to-day videos and have them be daily content. If you're someone who posts videos on a daily basis, well, I guess that's definitely going to be a bit of a different deal than if you post them on like a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. And I think a lot of people that post gaming content do actually post very frequent content. I think that's kind of what gaming channels happen to have sort of made the standard now. I'm not sure if it's across the board, but that's sort of been my take on it, that it seems like is very frequently the case. I don't know if I'm digging necessarily in the same channel anymore than I was. I've been trying to keep it pretty close to even, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, that's the majority of the situation. I feel like for people out there who might still be getting involved with YouTube at a smaller level, who might just be starting up, you might not want to partner right now if that's the case and these things are still in flux. There's been talk that the Curse Network, one of the other MCNs that's a bit on the smaller side, they might be a little bit more generous with their member... the hell am I losing my place here? The managed channel status, I think, has been a little bit easier for them to give out for whatever reason, but it's just strange that some of the biggest channels, and especially someone like Polaris, who I think have billed themselves as very much a premium channel, like they have some of the highest quality content out there of the channels that are partners with them. It's very strange that they would not trust those channels with that status of being managed. Especially, you know, people who have a proven track record, who have, like, well over 100,000 subscribers. That's not easy to get to that point. And if you were someone who was making that happen on the back of having, you know, some odd content choices or infringing content choices, it would be very surprising to me to think that you'd be able to get to that level. Because you would have gotten copyright strikes along the way, just by people going past the Content ID system and directly calling you out for it, because that is another thing. You can make claims if you are a content provider, whether or not you get recognized in the Content ID system. So, I mean, that's even happened too, and I've had an issue like with Dark Souls. I had a claim from Namco Bandai that I was using their introduction cinematic, which I was, but it wasn't necessarily infringing content because, well, that's just how that game goes. And they hadn't ever made a statement saying I wasn't allowed to use it. Not that, I think the default position is that you usually can't claim content unless you know you have prior approval. But in that case, it's one of those things like, why are they picking on certain people? Like, there's thousands and thousands of videos, and only certain videos get claims on them. So it's a strange world, and there's a lot of legal gray areas when it comes to YouTube monetization of gaming content. It's a lot to do with why I choose to do so many indie games, because it's much easier to get authorization with them. You don't really run into as many of those problems, and for the most part, things usually work out very well. But it's not to say that, you know, I don't want to occasionally do some AAA game coverage. I have done a few things, and usually it's not even an issue. But occasionally it does come up, and this is one of those times when that's going to become a little bit more of a factor. And if it becomes really, really difficult to make gaming content on YouTube, it's going to be very strange to see how the landscape changes a little bit, especially if those multi-channel networks are proven now to have almost no value for the partners that they're taking on. Because what were those bits of value that they were given? Essentially, at the beginning, they had a lot more leverage. Before, they used to be able to say that you get little special benefits, like being able to say that you have... Oh, what is this? Iron ore, okay. You get, you used to get custom thumbnails, you used to get special, like a special layout for your channel. which they kind of made everyone's all the same. You know, little things like that kind of made the difference with things. And now YouTube has gone above and beyond to try and make all the channels kind of feel very much the same, partnered or not. And really the only perks that are left are really the instant content or monetization scheme thing, which is, I don't know, a pretty big one, to be honest with you. The other thing is that certain ones, the bigger the network, the higher chance they'll be able to get you higher paying ads, which means generally a larger amount of money for your views. And it's also kind of difficult to calculate exactly what the cost is for people, because we all give up a certain amount of our revenue in some sort of a contract when we sign on to be with one of these MCNs, and depending on the stipulations, depending on what your agreement was with the MCN, you may or may not be getting a better deal to be with them than to be, to be solo. Because you can actually monetize content on your own, but the thing used to be is if you were doing gaming content, you wanted to avoid doing that. It was going to result in a lot more headaches and a lot more time spent worrying about getting, approval for things than potentially getting rejected. And all in all, it was kind of a nightmare, and I didn't like it. I mean, I only had to deal with it for a short time when I started doing this stuff before I had partnership. But once I got it, I was like, wow, this is so much easier, and now I don't really have to worry about this stuff as much. Obviously, you still don't want to do any kind of copywritten content. It's going to still get you into trouble one way or the other, and you are still beholden to your network one way or the other about posting that kind of content. But for people who haven't gotten any copyright strikes in the time they've been with the network, you would think preferential status would be given. So I know it's a kind of a long-winded, complicated rant, but it's a very complicated subject, and it's one that's very difficult to explain to people that aren't dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. So I feel like sometimes it is worth mentioning some of this stuff just to see, like, if I seem particularly stressed out about stuff, sometimes it's to do with stuff like this. And I just don't want to get into it because, well, for one, I don't know all the facts still, and I don't want to be alarmist either. I'm not trying to cause problems for people or make things seem more blown out of proportion or difficult than they actually are. But in general, it's just like, these weigh on you over time. Copper ore. Okay, I've got copper from the other world. But yeah, there's, it's all stuff that we're thinking about, and it's all stuff that factors in with the ways that we choose to proceed, because we all are trying to make a living. Well, those of us who are trying to make a living are trying to do so in the, the best way possible to make sure that we're making smart decisions and not setting ourselves up for being screwed, which is surprisingly a thing that happens all the time in the YouTube sphere. It's there are constantly little strategic decisions that need to be made to make sure that your channel isn't headed for failure in one way or another. And you've got to stay ahead of the people that are trying to basically make the money off of the channels. And essentially what networks are is they are set up in such a way as they want to do, and this is just sort of the way the business works, right? I'm not actually saying this to objectively be demeaning to the networks, but they're set up to do as little work as possible and to collect as much finance as possible to continue to grow, right? So they want to do as little work as possible, and what that means for channels is they want to give as little support possible, they want to give as little time on their staff as possible, they want to make sure they're collecting as much revenue as possible from as many channels as possible, and in the cases where they find that they have a particularly good channel going, maybe they want to help promote that channel, and specifically. But honestly, I think the way that they've chosen to do things a lot of the time has been to just really focus on a very small group of channels that they know have a very high chance of success, and are definitely poised for, really great things and will make lots and lots of money. And that they have a good revenue split with to make sure that that money goes to them. So, I mean, when you're talking about a large revenue split, many people who are in for, up to like 50% of their channel's earnings, and I'm not giving out any specific numbers for what I am in for, but it's kind of an issue sometimes, you're giving away a lot of what the time that you've spent trying to do stuff for to someone who essentially is not really doing much of anything on their side. They're just giving you, well, the privilege of saying you're with that network at this point. Well, that's kind of what the dispute is anyway, right? Like, what value does an MCN offer a channel if they're not giving them the ability to have a little bit of protection from these copyright strikes and from getting into issues with YouTube and, acting as a buffer, a legal buffer in some ways between you and YouTube or you and Google. And if they're taking away that option and they're basically putting the liability on the individual channels, what is left then? In terms of offer for the channel. What value do they really propose? And I think the only value that's really left is whatever particular stipulations that they've made in terms of promotion, and those are things that you would absolutely want to get in writing if you were a channel that had made negotiations about some kind of promotion. And the other thing could be that they potentially are able to get you better revenue in terms of the ads that they provide for you, or the ads that are contracted from them through to your channel. So other than that, though, I think that's about it. I mean, if you're still worked up about, like, the notoriety that's associated with being with Machinima, or being with Polaris, or being with, you know, RPM, or, you know, Maker Studios in general, I don't think that really holds as much water at this point. Maybe there was a time when someone could say, I'm a Machinima partner, that means something. Now, they've really taken on so many partners, I feel like that value has been severely diminished. And they don't really do much to specifically go out of their way to, you know, to help a channel grow, or to help promote them. I mean, with Machinima, I know they'll actually go out of their way sometimes to tweet you if you, like, thank them on Twitter for what they've done to help your channel, but it's kind of like a weird self-serving proposition, which I don't entirely understand. I've kind of forgotten how to deal with lava now. I think I need to cut through this. But I'm not trying to dish on my network because, again, I don't really understand or know all of the stipulations of how this is all going to work out. Things may be fine for me, and I just don't know yet. So, I mean, I kind of want to wait and reserve judgment before letting out any outrage. This is just sort of the position that I'm finding a bunch of people that I know in, specifically people that are with, like, RPM and Polaris. And I find it a bit disheartening and a bit sad and a bit frustrating that, you know, given all the time and effort that all these people have put into their channels, that they can't get at least the respect of knowing that their channel has their back, or their network, rather, has their back, in the form of, you know, allowing them that trust of being a managed channel, because really, they're allowed to specify anyone they want as a managed channel, from what I understand. If they wanted to, they could say everyone over 20,000 subscribers, or everyone who hasn't had a copyright strike in X amount of days, could have this status if they choose. But I don't think they are doing that. They're restricting it to the very, very highest echelon, and even subjectively sort of manipulating in that sphere as well, because it's not all of those people that are getting that status. So, I mean, not that it would necessarily be good if it was just people of a certain tier either. I think it should be kind of a little bit more open to that, to negotiation than that. But still, I mean, at least if that was the start, that would be something that you could maybe understand. If it's like 1% of the network's people that are getting this status, that seems a little bit rough to me. But, you know, it's not me. I'm not the one in charge of these business decisions. It's not my business, and I'm sure they're just acting in their own best interests. It's just sometimes I think that the way that the contract has worked has been a little bit one-sided, or at least that's the appearance that seems to be given based on the actions that I am aware of them taking at this present point. And again, things could all change. Negotiations might still be happening. I'm not at the front lines of these things. I don't know 100% of the information. So there is a chance that I might be totally out of the loop here and might even be pretty off base with some of the things that I've been saying. I'm just operating off of the information that was given based on some people that are pretty close to those negotiations. So I guess take it with a grain of salt for now. It could still change, but that's where I'm at. And when I was talking about possibly deciding that Twitch might be a more viable alternative, that's kind of where I was getting that from. So, oh, there's all of a sudden lava falling on my head for some reason. That's kind of bad news. I guess I'll just go through that lava and hope it doesn't burn me to death. Alright, so cave bat is hitting me. Okay, well, I think we're probably going to be about to the end of this episode. I know I managed to talk for the entire thing. A little bit of that talk was a little confusing. I totally hear you on that. I was having a little bit of cognitive dissonance as I was trying to speak, because I was also thinking of a number of other things that I wanted to potentially take the chat into. And also trying to not potentially say things that were a little bit too damning when I haven't really found the right level yet of where I fall in this situation. Oh, more lava. I don't want lava. I want that to just go away. It'll stop falling eventually. There we go. And then we'll kick that out of the way. And how far are we down toward hell? We're actually very much most of the way down. Well, that's good news. I suppose next episode we could make our way the rest of the way, and then we're going to be doing some building. And hopefully those of you out there who don't mind the sort of industry talk stuff found that to be at least mildly interesting and maybe not completely boring. If it was boring, my apologies. But I think it's also reasonably useful to know this stuff because it's kind of important. Especially if a bunch of people decide all of a sudden that YouTube no longer makes sense for them because they won't be able to post videos regularly enough because they're going to be under monetization review, and all of a sudden their full-time job has to take precedence because they don't have the time and energy to deal with all that stuff. Now you might know why. But we also might be a few weeks away from finding out the actual issue firsthand yet, so... Oh, you know what? I totally forgot there was another issue that was involved with this whole thing, and that's that few people have mentioned that there is, and I guess we're going to go on for another minute here, there is now an unlink button on most people's channels, on affiliates channels, I should say, not on managed channels. The button will allow people to unlink, or at least that's what the button says, that it will allow people to unlink from their network deal. That is not necessarily true. Everything that I've heard about this button, that is not actually what it does. It just starts a conversation between you and your MCN for the concept of dissolution, but you still have to have a valid reason to get out of the contract. It's not like if you just click this button, all of a sudden your contract is null and void and you can just move on. Because if that was the case, then we really wouldn't have a problem, because then another network would just decide, well, I'm going to be the one that fulfills the needs of all these affiliates that now all of a sudden find themselves not able to do this job anymore. And then all of a sudden everyone would shift over there, the process would begin anew, and really nobody would be all that upset. We would just continue on at the same pace that we are. As far as I know, that is not what that button is going to do. It is just going to allow you to start that conversation, and if you have valid proof of why you should be able to get out of this contract, then I guess you could get somewhere with that. But as far as I'm aware, not really anybody that I know anyway has that actual instant monetization in their contract. Granted, again, I don't know everyone's contracts. I'm just talking about some people that I've talked to. If we did have that in our contract, there would be quite an obvious legal case as to why it is sort of a bait-and-switch situation for them to bring us on under a certain pretense, then all of a sudden change that pretense, and all of a sudden we wouldn't be able to do our job the same way. Oh, I got a wizard hat. That's cool. But yeah, I don't believe that is necessarily the case, though, but there is some hope to the fact that maybe other places, other regions, might have slightly different laws as it regards contract deals like that. So if that is the case, maybe that is still a valid legal case. I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't even know a lawyer who's invested in this particular situation to be able to comment on it. But there is still a chance. I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting thing to see how this all shakes out as January comes around, when these actual things perhaps will go into effect. There's always the chance they might get scared off by the backlash of people. There is a reason to say maybe that's a good reason to maybe get up in arms now about it. I kind of would rather reserve judgment and see what they're going to say about it before that happens. And if they decide to back off on their own accord, then everybody is better for it, right? So, I guess with that, I will wrap up the episode at this point. I think I've covered just about everything I need to cover with regard to that little conversation. If you have questions, I guess I'll try and answer them, but again, stuff's still subject to change, so I'm not sure how comfortable I am commenting on any of this, because I don't really know the hard and fast about what it's going to turn out to be. So I'll happily answer stuff that is within the realm of what I just talked about, as long as it's stuff that I can actually comment on. If not, I guess we'll just wait and see. But again, hopefully it was informative or interesting to you guys. Feel free to let me know what you think. I probably won't have another talk about this again for a good while, because I think, honestly, it is maybe a little bit more exclusive in terms of this industry stuff than I think probably the majority of people want to watch. But I did think that it was worth going over, at least briefly. So let me know what your opinion is on that. Let me know what your opinion is on the whole situation if you feel like it. And of course, oh, I got an ancient gold helmet. That seems cool. And of course, we'll be back again very soon for another episode. Terraria has been daily for a while now, and I want to keep it that way. I'm enjoying all the progress we've been making, so I would like to potentially keep making that progress for at least another bunch of episodes. I will be planning some Long Live the Queen coming up pretty shortly as well. I will probably record that over the weekend, or depending on when this goes up. Have already recorded it a couple days ago, and then I'll be doling that out over the next week. As long as things stay fluid and constant for me on my channel, I have no issues. And even if I have to keep a backlog, I don't really mind doing that as well. So, I mean, I don't think this is necessarily going to really cut into my day-to-day that much, as long as I can stay ahead of the workload. But if we get into a position where there's like an exclusivity situation, and I don't have a way to cover a game fast enough, that could be a little bit of an obnoxious hit to my progress. But all in all, I don't think the sky is falling to quite the degree that it sounds like it is by a lot of people's admission. We'll see, though. We'll see. So I will catch you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Please do leave your support if you can. I greatly value it. And I guess, if anything, the message that I would love for you guys to take away is, you know, keep watching stuff and keep being around on my channel. I could use the support more than ever. So in case things do get weird or decide to go a little bit pear-shaped, I guess there'll be a party over on Twitch, and I will become a daily Twitch streamer or something like that. That's kind of the worst-case scenario. So if that's the case, I guess we'll sort it out. Hopefully you guys have my back for that, and we will figure it all out as it comes. So talk to you guys next time, and I hope you have a terrific night. Later.